Welcome to another episode of I Own a Business, where we focus on helping practice owners grow the practice of their dreams. I'm your host, Dr. Steve Vargo, and I have with me Cory Friedman. And Cory is part of the benefits consulting practice with Alera Group. And for the past 13 years, Cory's been helping healthcare practices and small employers implement and manage healthcare and benefits programs. He supports organizations all over the country in a wide range of specialties. So hello, Cory.
Hello, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So before we get started, Cory, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about you and how you work with clients, many of which happen to be healthcare professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as mentioned, I've spent, a little more than a decade working primarily with smaller independent healthcare practices, helping them structure their employee benefit programs. And that means different things to different people. For some, it's health insurance. For others, it's, dental or vision benefits or disability programs, or even newer, untraditional or unconventional things like lifestyle spending accounts, anything that falls under that employee benefits umbrella. And what I've found over time and in the way that we like to work with clients, which is, different than what others are maybe experiencing, is that for smaller businesses, we're finding that the relationship between, business owner, manager, and insurance broker is becoming a lot more transactional. There's been a lot of consolidation in the insurance agency space. And as firms get larger, they often move up market, diverting resources away from smaller businesses. And our firm saw an opportunity to double down and continue to reinvest and support smaller businesses, really looking for a more strategic partner, somebody that's going to offer more guidance and be more proactive and more supportive and a lot less transactional. And you take that sort of coupled with, on the other side, if you look at just different healthcare sectors in our country, there's been a lot of consolidation there too. We're seeing a lot of larger private equity owned, multi-site, multi-state healthcare practices across dermatology or dental or veterinary medicine or optometry, you name it. And as independent practices are forced to compete for that same talent, but don't have the same resources, they're looking for someone that can help guide them to better understand what are the benefits that we should be offering, how can we compete, with some of the larger companies in our industry, and what can we be doing to help us stand out from the pack. So we take a much more consultative approach, really trying to understand the problems that we're being asked to solve. What is it that the client is struggling with? And then working backwards from there.
That's really where I'd like to take this discussion. When we talked before, you said something that really stuck out to me, and correct me if I'm getting it wrong here, but I believe you said when discussing benefits, we're really discussing talent acquisition and retention. And that really clicked with me. It's a pain point, as you know, as most people know, for many practice owners and small business in general, is the issue right now of talent acquisition and retention. Especially with small businesses that are trying to compete with larger employers that may offer better benefits or may offer benefits in general that you don't offer. So if we were just to start from point A, and if I would ask you, if you're an optometrist today and you want to offer benefits to employees, but you aren't offering anything at the moment, which to that point could be costing you talent acquisition and retention, and probably is costing you. For that optometrist, where's a good place to start?
Yeah, it's a really, really, really good question. And I think you're spot on. From where we sit, a conversation about benefits is a conversation about talent acquisition and retention, especially for smaller businesses. And the reason why I say that is this. If you're a small business, defined in most, states as having fewer than 50 employees. So let's just, for conversation's sake, use that as a reference point. If you've got fewer than 50 employees, there's no law or mandate or requirement that you offer health insurance or benefits to your employees. So if you're going to do it, right, you're choosing to do it, then you're probably choosing to do it, not because someone's telling you have to, but because you believe, right, that it will help you attract and retain talent, that investing in your employees is worthwhile, that you care, right, about the livelihood of your workforce, and want to make these resources or these programs available. And so if that's where we're starting from, right, then it's a question of what should we do first, right? We're not offering anything today. We believe all those things are true. We want to invest in our people. We think it's crucial to the success of our business, right? That we retain, the talent that we need. Where do we get started? So when somebody engages, with me or a member of my team, we're, like I said, really trying to start with what is the problem that we're trying to solve for and working backwards from there. So we're going to ask a lot of questions around, what are you doing today? What are you not doing? What have you decided against in the past? Have you ever looked at offering health insurance or other benefits, and really trying to understand, where we're starting from. But sometimes, we think that it's worth involving employees too, right? So survey them. We encourage a lot of people to survey their employees and, try to get some feedback from them about what they would want out of a benefits program versus, the employer coming to me and just assuming health insurance is the driver, right? That's the thing that we need, which happens all the time. And then we roll out a health insurance program and find, only one or two people are actually interested in participating. Well, that's a whole lot of, wasted time and effort if that wasn't the thing that, really gets people excited or energized. So I think, to avoid a lot of wasted time and effort on the back end, getting some employee feedback early on is really critical. But then I also think it's really important to try to understand, if you were to offer, health insurance or some of these other benefits, what are maybe some of the adverse consequences that, you might run into as an employer. So for example, if you've got employees that are getting coverage today through a spouse's employer, or are getting coverage today through like one of the Affordable Care Act marketplaces, and maybe even getting that coverage subsidized, it's possible that if you as an employer were to offer coverage to your employees, they could become ineligible for the subsidy they have through the ACA marketplace, or even potentially, become ineligible for coverage through their spouse's employers program. And so trying to understand too, like, what are some of those different dynamics, I think is really important. And then once we have our ducks in a row, so we've identified what is important to employees. So maybe it's health insurance, maybe it's not, right? Maybe it's dental or, vision or some of these other things, probably in your world, right? And working with your members, vision's probably not the big driver. They've got, discounted care available through the employers that, most of them work for. But, whatever it is, figure out what that thing is. Then I think it's really important to engage with, a true broker or advisor, someone that can help expose you as a business owner to what's possible. Like that, I think, is the most critical thing, because oftentimes employers don't know what they don't know. And so it's really important to sit down with somebody and learn what are the different opportunities that are available, whether it be for health insurance or anything else, and then try to identify what is, most aligned with whatever that target objective or outcome is that we're trying to achieve, and then let that person go to work for you. And I would say that also identifying the right, insurance broker, consultant, advisor, whatever term you want to use, but partner on the front end is really important too. I think there's this misconception among business owners that talking to multiple insurance brokers at the same time somehow makes the market more competitive, and that if you have more people competing for your business, the result's going to get better. And the reality is that's just not the case. As insurance brokers, we all get access to the same plans at the same price from the same insurance companies. So, there's nothing I can offer, an employer that somebody else couldn't, and vice versa. It very much is expertise, support, approach. Like those are the differentiators. And so finding somebody that you think is going to be the right partner for you is critical. Cut out all of the noise, right? And then let that person go to work for you.
I like that approach of surveying your employees, because one, I just think it sends the right message from the beginning that you actually care about your employees when you go to them and say what's important to you. But, I get asked this a lot too as a consultant, and maybe it comes up, let's say when you're hiring an associate OD, where a practice owner might say, how much should I offer to pay them? What benefits should I offer? And I can give general feedback, of course, based on averages and, what we hear in the industry. But at the same time, sometimes I'll tell them, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what's important to them. Yep. So seeking to better understand maybe in the interview process what they're looking for can help you craft that offer. So I definitely like that approach. Another thing I'll hear a lot is which plan to choose. People will ask, like, where do I go? How do I find what plans do I should I look at? So I think the question is, can employers offer more than one plan choice to their employees?
Yeah, so that's another really good question, and something that comes up all the time is this belief that if I'm an employer and I'm going to design a benefits program, I'm going to offer health insurance, for example, I have to pick one plan to offer to my employees, on a take it or leave it basis, and recognizing that not everybody has the same needs or same desires, right? Same family makeup or budget, whatever the case might be. That gives me, you know, some hesitation as a business owner because I'm fearful that I won't be able to find something that satisfies, everybody. And so sometimes that's the reason why people choose not to get started. And I would say one of the biggest, myths that, that's sort of out there in the market is that you have, as an employer, can only offer one plan option to employees. That's simply not the case. So there definitely are some rules and some limitations, and different insurance companies in different markets impose, certain rules. So for example, there's some markets like in Florida where, some insurance companies require that you have a minimum number of people enrolled to offer more than one option, but it's rare. Generally speaking, in almost every situation, an employer can offer more than one health plan choice to their employees, and we encourage them to do so. Not everybody has the same needs, right? Some are willing to spend more money for a richer benefit plan. Maybe they want to, cover their kids because they're always at the pediatrician or whatever the case might be. So they're willing to spend a little bit more on the front end so they have a richer benefit on the back end. And you might find others are younger, healthier, maybe looking for more of a catastrophic option. They just want to know that if something major were to happen, that they're covered, but beyond that, they're not super concerned, and they really are looking for the lowest cost option. And as an employer, you can satisfy, multiple people at the same time by giving them choice. And we absolutely believe in employee choice. What is important to know, though, is that you have to pick one insurance company typically. So you can't, for example, offer Blue Cross and United Healthcare at the same time, but within any of those carriers, framework, you can offer more than one plan option.
So it takes some of the pressure then off the owner to
Yeah,
have
take
the
some of the
perfect
pressure off,
plan. So
for
um,
sure.
maybe a part B to that question, does a practice owner need to offer health insurance to qualify for other benefits as you look at offering a package of benefit? Or maybe ask from a different perspective, do employees need to enroll in health insurance to participate in other benefits?
Yeah, so I'll answer this both ways. But the short answer to both is no. So employers do not have to offer health insurance in order to offer dental plans or disability coverage or life insurance benefits or anything else that falls under that employee benefits umbrella. So all of these benefits are available a la carte. And, we do encourage that decisions about each benefit get made separate and distinct from one another, because what works well for one practice might not make sense for others. So we've got plenty of clients that offer a health insurance plan to their employees, and that's all that they offer. We also have plenty of clients that don't offer health insurance because for whatever reason, that's just not important to their employees, or they're in a market where maybe they're near a military base and a lot of their employees are military spouses. And so their families are covered right through a government health plan option. So if they were to offer it, nobody would need it. And so we don't spend time or money on something like that, but instead, we'll invest in a, dental program or disability benefits. And so, yeah, so absolutely you can have, one without the other. And then as an employee, if the employer does offer multiple different insurance plan options under that benefits umbrella, there is no requirement that you participate in the health insurance plan to be eligible for the other benefits. So there's no prerequisite that says you've got to have health to have dental or vision or life. They're all separate and distinct decisions that employees get to make.
Perfect. So let's get creative.
Yeah.
For a second. For those practices, smaller practices, and almost every optometry practice, independent optometry practice has less than 50. There's exceptions to that, but most of them would be considered small business. A lot of them, unless you're in a rural area, will look around and they'll be surrounded by larger employers. And this is becoming increasingly prevalent where we're hearing, I'm having trouble with retention because they're leaving for XYZ company, some other business in the area, other bigger practices. So if we were going to get creative for a second, for those practices that look around and feel that sense of, I'm unable to compete with these larger employers, what are some perhaps unconventional benefits that employers could be offering?
Yeah, no, there's some things happening right now, in the market, some new, I'll say emerging trends, and I'll use that term generously. It might even be premature to say that, but there's some things happening that we're really excited about right now, as brokers, as advisors, just new opportunities for employers that, didn't exist years ago, or were available but would have required a lot more like management, or active involvement at the employer level to offer some of these things. So, outside of your traditional benefit umbrella, so I'll define that as health insurance, dental, vision, life, disability. Those are kind of the core traditional employee benefits. Um, there are some really exciting things happen. So we're starting to see employers, invest a lot more in mental health. So standalone, teletherapy, or virtual therapy benefits, right? Those options are now available, and they're not super expensive, but can be really meaningful depending upon, the nature of the workforce. We see employers investing in healthcare reimbursement arrangements. So even if they're not offering like an underlying health insurance plan, putting up money that employees, can draw upon to cover out-of-pocket medical expenses is something that, we're seeing more and more of. And a new sort of trend we're starting to see too is people being a little bit more thoughtful about how they're structuring those, what I'll call healthcare reimbursement arrangements or HRAs. So instead of making the money available, to any employee on an as-needed basis, they might put some, rules or criteria around the program that might say, only the use of certain providers or certain facilities, will qualify for reimbursement from the HRA, trying to steer employees, with this incentive to higher quality, lower cost providers for given procedures. And of course, making some element of like advocacy, or, data analytics available where employees can easily identify who those top performing doctors are. So we're starting to see a lot more focus on like clinical outcomes and cost and, quality of healthcare inside of benefit plan design. And then something that I'm, really excited about is this idea of lifestyle spending accounts. So people are familiar with FSAs, so flexible spending accounts, right? Employees typically contribute their own money pre-tax that they can then use on medical, dental, or pharmacy, vision or pharmacy expenses. People are familiar with HSAs, right? Very similar to FSAs, but employers can contribute in addition to employees. There's no forfeiture of any money that's contributed if not spent. But this new category, what I'll call lifestyle spending accounts, is really, really, really interesting. So the idea here is that outside of a traditional health insurance plan or benefits program, employers are investing in these accounts, essentially giving employees money to spend on whatever they want to spend on within certain parameters, designed by the employer and then managed by a third party that specializes in establishing, and managing these accounts, activating, debit cards so people can use the funds, but where these cards are, smart cards and, only usable in certain places. But I'll give you a couple of examples. So, this could be something really broad. So this could be wellness or overall well-being focused. So an employer might say, we're going to give employees $100 a month to spend on anything that falls into that wellness or well-being category, but letting the employees decide, right, versus the employer telling them, here's how you get to spend that money, meaning these are now flexible benefits, right? It's really up to the member to choose, which is going to add a lot more value to the overall program when the employee feels like they're in control, because if they can use it as something that is meaningful to them, then all of a sudden it starts to feel like a real benefit. So in that broader well-being category, you might have people spending that money on a gym membership. You might have people buying a Peloton for their homes, right, and financing it. So it's, whatever, $50 a month for the next few years, but they're going to, use the money that the employer is putting up to pay for that. It could be things like haircuts or acupuncture or, massage therapy. So again, you could be really broad in scope with something like that, or you can get really, really, really granular and really specific too. So one example that comes to mind, and I learned about this recently, is the company Zoom. So, the software that we're using right today as we're having this conversation, and then everybody knows now as a result of, the sort of pandemic era work from home surge that, we're all still living in. They, as part of just sort of like their, ethos as a company, is that, they want to be green and reduce their carbon footprint. And as such, they attract a lot of employees that align with that mission. And so a lot of employees that work for them, will drive an electric car, for example, right? Again, it's also sort of part of, the culture there. They created, and I'm, hearing this secondhand through a vendor partner. So, discount this a little bit, but they created a lifestyle spending account whereby employees who do drive an electric vehicle get $50 a month, I believe it was, to spend on electric vehicle charging stations. So like very specific example, right? Very, very, very tailored in terms of like what the benefit is. But if you are somebody, right, that gets to take advantage of that, that's a really cool thing. And you might get really excited about that, where you think of the health insurance plan and you're like, yeah, like health insurance, I have it. And I sort of expect to have it, but like it's not, super exciting and not like really energized to get up and go to work every day for a place that offers me health insurance. But like you do something really cool right in this other category, and that can be a huge difference maker. And so even small employers have these opportunities available. And there's one vendor that comes to mind, that we've started to collaborate with that manages these programs. And look, it's not an insignificant investment. I think to get started with them, it's something like $10,000 a year, not including the incentive, right? So it's 10 grand, right? Just to, have access to the platform. And then let's say you give everybody, $100 a month, that's in addition to. But while that sounds really expensive, when I think about your average health insurance plan, for example, if you're a small employer, let's just say you've got 10 people enrolled in health insurance and you're giving each of them $300 a month, you're spending 36 grand, right, a year on health insurance premiums. And if that's not the thing that's exciting people, right, they, have options elsewhere, or it doesn't feel like a super rich benefit plan or whatever the case might be, investing that money elsewhere, right, could yield a better result, again, in terms of, attraction and retention. So lots of really, interesting, new, innovative things, coming to market. A lot of this stuff has been tested for years by really large employers, and these things are starting to find their way down market to smaller employers. And, this is the stuff that we get really excited about, because this, again, allows us as consultants to sit with the client and say, what do you want to do? Right. And someone says to us, we want to reward employees that drive electric vehicles. Cool. Like, let's talk about what that looks like, right? Like, how do we do that? Or we want to make it easier for employees to see a therapist or get, massage therapy or acupuncture, again, like invest in themselves, right? We want, to give people, access to self-care. Okay, great. Like, how do we do that? Right. And that's where this allows for a lot of, room for creativity. And, that's the stuff that any, good insurance broker, benefits consultant or advisor is going to get really excited about. So.
Which some of these things might have not even been a discussion 10 years ago. You would know more about that than I would. It's interesting as you go through these things, thinking about how trends change. And again, what's important to other people. Some of the things you mentioned were like telehealth, which is obviously, there's a lot of convenience with that, with being able to access doctors when it's appropriate for that format through telehealth. You mentioned like lifestyle spending accounts, wellness, culture of a practice, and values, as you were talking about Zoom and carbon footprint, and being able to attract people based on benefits you have that are aligned with similar cultures, and just the overall values to the employees. But when you look at what employers are willing to do now, insurance companies putting an emphasis on having healthy employees, there's obviously benefits to employers, but there's benefits to insurance companies as well. So them investing into these programs that will promote better health, wellness, things like that. It is exciting. I'm not even a benefits person like you are. And it sounds exciting to me. I'm going to take you, this might be outside your scope, so I don't mean to throw you a curveball here, but as you're talking about this, and I'm thinking of talent acquisition, where would be a good time to create awareness for these benefits? A lot of times, like in a job ad, I'll just see, we offer competitive pay and benefits. And that really, a lot of times it doesn't stand out there. And I mean, should that be part of a job ad? Should it be part of the interview? Wait till you're presenting a package. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And I think that's going to vary by employer and, just how much they want to put out there, and if someone is, keeping something, close, right? Maybe they're doing something that is proprietary, or they're in an area where there's a lot of competition for the same talent. They may not want to be as forthcoming with some of the stuff that they're doing. I would say that most people, I think, are probably getting into the details about the benefits program, during that interview process. So maybe not necessarily in the initial job posting or ad, but once they've now met the candidate, the candidate's starting to ask questions about benefits, or they think that this might be the right person to come work for them. That's where I think it's critically important, especially if you're doing something really unique, that you highlight that, because that can be a difference maker for people. And, especially in a lot of, healthcare, jobs where maybe someone's getting paid hourly. And so you're advertising an hourly rate of, $17 an hour, and the practice down the street, is willing to pay 18. Well, if you've done a poor job, right, of also, communicating that while it's true, right, we're going to pay you a little bit less, but we offer all of these other, awesome things. You get, $100 a month to spend on massage, whatever, right? Whatever the thing is. Right, then you're going to probably miss out on that candidate, because, right, like, people, if they don't know or they don't understand that these things exist, right, then they're going to make a decision based on what they do know. And it's very easy to look at two job offers side by side. And, if the job is essentially the same, you're going to choose the one, right, that's going to pay you more. And so I think it's really important that during that process, employers, are sharing this information. And I also think it's really important to continue to reiterate it and call attention to it. So after someone's been hired, right, sending out, whether it's monthly or quarterly, just a newsletter or, email to employees that, hey, as a reminder, we have these benefits, make sure you're taking advantage of them. During open enrollment, to do a really good job communicating that all these benefits exist and what they're there for and how to participate and take advantage, is critically important as well.
There was if we go back a while, as we look at full-time versus part-time, I think there was typically the expectation that benefits would only be for full-time employees. And I think we've seen some trends change there, because the workforce now does include a lot more part-time employees. In eye care specifically, a lot of practices depend on part-time employees and are in that same scenario of having to acquire and retain. They don't always need a 36, 40-hour a week employee, but they still need good employee. The person working 20 hours a week brings, a lot of value to a practice. So from a partial from a part-time standpoint, can employers typically include part-timers in these benefits packages if they want?
Yeah, and this is another opportunity for employers to differentiate themselves, and this is something that we're seeing more of. So from a traditional health insurance standpoint, most insurance companies will let you drop the hourly eligibility threshold to something below 30 hours, which is the normal cutoff, from a benefit standpoint for most between full-time and part-time. So we absolutely, can make benefits more inclusive that way. But I think that this is an area where employers are really leaning into some of these untraditional or unconventional things. So while maybe the full health insurance plan is an offer to part-timers, they might create an option that is a standalone telemedicine benefit, coupled with, something like one of these lifestyle spending accounts. And then maybe like a full suite of I'll say Aflac type benefits. So critical illness, accident, hospital indemnity. And it doesn't have to be Aflac or Colonial. There's lots of carriers that specialize in these benefits, on a true group basis where you can, tailor the offering a little bit more. But some of the, I'll say like employee paid benefits. So, right, if it's employee paid, there's, very little reason not to open up the opportunity to enroll to part-timers. And where it's employer paid, I think employers have a lot of opportunities now to allocate those funds to benefits that are meaningful, and to make everything more equitable. For a long time, part-timers were often overlooked, right? Even as, a broker, I'm guilty of this, right? For years, I'd start every conversation with a client and I'd ask everybody the same question: tell me how many full-time employees you have. Right. And they tell me, and then that's the focus, right, of our time together. And I think what's been really interesting and, really cool over the last couple of years is that we're now starting to ask questions around how many part-timers do you have and what are you doing for them and how important are they, right, to, the practice, right, and to, your organization? Do you have anybody that is full-time today that maybe has wanted to go part-time because they want more of a work-life balance or want to start a family or whatever the case might be, but are fearful that if they go from full-time to part-time, they're going to give up their 401k or their healthcare plan. And so that's been a deterrent. Can we solve for that? And I think, more and more, it's seeming like the answer is yes. So.
From a time management standpoint, as with probably anybody who operates a business, certainly small business, time is a critical factor, and a lack of time to do some of these things. So I think when we start talking about administrative tasks, this is where a lot of practice owners look at it like a necessary evil, and these things sometimes get kind of pushed to the back, and not enough focus on it. So from a small business standpoint, most of which are practices, they don't have an HR department. So beyond just managing the benefits themselves, what other responsibilities would an employer take on that chooses to offer health insurance or other benefits to their team?
Yeah. So of course there's like the day-to-day administration of the benefits plan. So that's, making sure that you're letting new hires know that they're eligible, getting them the information, getting them enrolled, terminating people when they no longer work for you, or if they move from, for example, full-time to part-time and become ineligible. So managing the day-to-day is a big part of it. And the amount of work associated with that is going to vary based on size of the practice, turnover, right? How much are you hiring? It's entirely possible that you've got a small practice that's had the same, core workforce for 20 years and there's no turnover and there's nobody new coming in. And so not a whole lot of effort goes into, to managing this stuff day to day. And that's where I think you can really rely on a good insurance broker as well. Most brokers are willing to do ads and terms on behalf of their clients. Now the client still has to let, the broker know, hey, we just hired somebody, right? Like I would have no visibility into that, unless I was in your practice every day. But that's where, having a good partner can make some of that a lot easier. And that's also where, accessibility to technology is making things a lot easier too. So, if we're having this conversation 5 years ago, it's at that point, nearly impossible, mostly unheard of for a smaller business to have a, online or digital benefits enrollment platform where, we're not filling out paper applications anymore, but employees are logging onto a website that's established for that business and making all of their benefit selections in one place. And it's, generating a payroll deduction file for payroll and sending the enrollments to the carrier and, kind of becoming this like central hub for all things benefits. Unheard of for smaller businesses, even just a few years ago. And today, I would say it's almost the opposite. Like the vast majority do have something like that in place today, or at the very least have it available to them. And then, maybe decided against it for whatever reason. And usually available at no or very little cost. And so, access to technology has really transformed the experience and has really lessened the burden on, practice owners and managers, just in terms of like data collection, administering the benefits and communicating, benefit availability to employees. But besides the day-to-day stuff, the other area that I think employers need to be aware of is compliance. And this is often one that's overlooked, mostly out of ignorance, because I think a lot of smaller employers, again, don't know what they don't know. And I think there is this assumption that if you're smaller, you don't have to comply with certain things. And so you do, right, need to, worry about whether it's COBRA or state continuation. And again, that's going to vary by size and state, but you need to have a process in place to administer continuation of benefits for someone that's no longer eligible that was participating. All of those things can be outsourced or, made easier to manage. You've got to have the right plan documents. You've got to have the, required annual notices, put together, completed and distributed, each year. There are things like filings to, or disclosures to CMS or the Centers for, Medicaid and Medicare Services about the, prescription drug coverage credibility on your plan. So without getting too into the weeds, right, and making this, a compliance focused discussion, there are things that employers need to do. But again, a good broker is going to be proactive in saying, here's what you need to do. Here's the resources available to make this easier for you. And go from there. So none of this stuff, should be a deterrent. Like none of these things, on their own are reason not to offer benefits. But if somebody is offering benefits today and hasn't had a good partner, hasn't been exposed to what they need to do, or doesn't have a good process in place to administer the benefits, and maybe they've gotten burned, it certainly could be a reason why somebody stops offering benefits, right? And is hesitant to jump back in. And we see that all the time, where you've got somebody working for you, they're enrolled in your health insurance plan, they leave the practice. 6 months later, you realize they're still on the bill and you've been paying their premiums for 6 months. Mm-hmm. Well, that happens a couple of times. And at some point, right, you just get frustrated enough that you're like, forget this, like, this is just too much and we're wasting all this money and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's where things tend to break down. With the right communication, the right process, the right technology and the right partner, all of that stuff can be solved for.
Yeah. I think a theme of this, as you've said a couple of times, you don't know what you don't know. And on the compliance standpoint, it got me thinking about, there's a company we work with that will handle HIPAA compliance for our practices. And some practices will say, well, what do I need to do? They want to kind of take that on by themselves. And it's pretty broad what needs to be done. The company we work with actually simplifies it for them. But some people want to take on those sort of responsibilities. And my thought is usually you don't want to know all that. That's not the best use of your time. Focus on growing the practice, focus on leading your team, focus on other areas of the practice. But when it comes down to running a business, some things you need to outsource just makes more sense to me. And I'll say, you don't want to know all that. That doesn't benefit you unless you're going to go into that field. There's people out there that are going to know a lot more than you do. And I always look at through the standpoint of opportunity cost, right? If you're spending so much time focused on this to save a few bucks, you're really missing out on the other things that you could be doing that are really going to drive a lot more growth and revenue in the practice. So
for sure. I couldn't agree more. And there are reasons why people specialize in this stuff, right? Because it is very nuanced, it's complicated, and it's ever changing, right? So like rules and regulations are always changing too. And so, better to let somebody else handle that so that you can, right, like you said, focus on running your practice, growing your practice. If you could cut out an hour a day of administrative effort, you could see another patient maybe, right? Which should more than make up, over time for what, you were spending to outsource that. Or even better, you can leave the practice at a reasonable hour, right? And not be bringing work home and, go have, right, that work-life balance that's, so important to people. Because you and I both know, right, we see this every day. The reality is, if you have to do all the administrative stuff that you've burdened yourself with, you're still going to see the extra patient, right? So you're still going to allow, people to come in or same day appointments or whatever. And so what that means is you're just doing all the paperwork and all that stuff, at 6, 7, 10 o'clock at night. And, I think a lot of that stuff really can be outsourced efficiently and cost effectively to make everything easier for the practice owner. So
my last question for you, Cory, is what should a business owner look for in an insurance broker? I'm gonna give you a chance in a minute to mention your company and how people would get in touch with you, but just in general, because sometimes people will ask about this and they'll say, well, I'm in this part of Nebraska. What, did you have any recommendations? And no, I don't know, like brokers all over the country. But then the question will kind of move to, well, what should I look for? So I'm really interested in your opinion on what would the qualities, because you mentioned before, sometimes, having the same access to the same plans. And so it goes beyond that. What are some of those things that they should look at?
Yeah. So, and I think I probably touched on some of this, in talking through, some of the things that, a broker should be doing or could be doing. But if I had to distill it down, I would say a good broker is proactive, right? So they're not waiting for the client to come to them and say, for example, hey, I just got my renewal. It looks like our costs are going up. What are we going to do about it? Right. But instead, that broker is reaching out to the client well in advance of that renewal, saying, what are we going to do? What's working? What's not working? Where do we want to take your benefits program? What's changed with your workforce? What's changed, with your business? Right. So on and so forth. And not just at renewal time, but as they're learning about new trends or new things, right? Are they bringing that stuff to their client's attention? So I think proactivity is key. There's so many things that we can't control, right? As insurance brokers, as employers. And I think oftentimes the renewal process for many feels very rushed and causes a lot of anxiety and, leaves you making decisions without feeling like you've had all the information or have explored every option. And one of the things that we can control is just starting earlier, right? And so by, building a longer runway, we can take a lot of anxiety out of that process. So I think proactivity is key. I think a good broker is prescriptive. So again, right, a good broker is not afraid to insert themselves and say, this is what you should be doing, or this is what I recommend, because now they should have a good reason why they're making that recommendation. And usually, right, that's going to be driven by experience, right, expertise, exposure to other similar businesses. So, I would say a good broker partner, for a, optometrist office or other healthcare practice is someone that has a lot of experience working with other similar businesses. Why? Because similar businesses tend to have a lot of the same challenges, similar workforce demographics, right? Similar age ranges, incomes, similar needs, and then similar business challenges, lean management team, nobody specializing in benefits, primarily things like that. And if you've solved those challenges for a number of others, chances are you could probably solve those same challenges for the next client. And so it might not be relevant, to an optometrist that you've got a lot of experience as a broker working with car dealerships. Very different, workforce dynamic, right? Different needs, different, business overall. And so finding a partner that is experienced in helping others like you and isn't afraid to be a little bit more prescriptive, I think is key as well. I find often, insurance brokers, becoming more like order takers. The client tells me what they want and then I go do it. Well, you're the expert, right? I wouldn't go see my doctor and tell them what I want them to do to me, right? And then they're going to do it. I'm coming to them so they can tell me, right, what they think they can diagnose and they can prescribe. And I think as insurance brokers that, we've got a responsibility to do the same. Now you've got to leave room for flexibility and collaboration, right? So you've got to be, willing to make recommendations, but then also able to take a step back and say, okay, but now that I've made my recommendation, what do you like? What don't you like? Is there something else we should be looking at? Because ultimately this has to make sense for that employer and for their specific workforce. But you've got to be able to give them a starting point. Right? If somebody that wasn't offering health insurance today called me and said, we want to offer health insurance. And I said, great, what do you want to do? Right? Like that's not super helpful. So there's that. And then I just think lastly that, a good insurance broker is supportive. So, I mentioned at the start, that far too often we're finding the relationship between, broker and client, especially in the small business market, becoming much more transactional, where you maybe place the coverage and roll a few people, and sure, you're happy to help if they reach out and ask for it, but otherwise you're fairly disengaged. I think, a good broker is really supportive, and that's ongoing, not just once a year at renewal, but they're there, right? They're picking up the phone, they're returning emails, they're bringing new ideas, they're pushing compliance information as things change to the client, they're checking in regularly, and the client knows that if they need something, they can count on that person. And I think that there are plenty of insurance brokers, that operate that way, right? And very much, see themselves in the same light that, a client looks to their accountant or their attorney, right? Like we want to be held, to the same standard. In that when you hire that person, you're hiring them for that expertise. You believe them to be, a worthwhile partner and, want to know that you can count on them.
I think that part about being prescriptive is something that definitely doctors can find relatable, because it's similar to that experience as well in the exam lane, where what do you want? As the patient, you want someone to listen to you and understand what's important to you. But at the same time, as a patient, you're there wanting that professional feedback, that guidance, that support from the doctor. So I can see that being very relatable to our eye care community. So thanks very much, Cory. This has been incredibly helpful, informational. I think a lot of our members will get a lot out of this. Again, it's that administrative thing that they don't teach that in school, and all of a sudden you find yourself with these administrative responsibilities. This is definitely one of them, and the ability to compete again, I think where we started with those large employers. So very insightful. Thank you very much. Where can people learn more about you and your company?
Yeah. Yep. So people can visit Alera Group, ALERAGROUP.com to learn more about our firm more broadly. We are a large national insurance brokerage and benefits consulting firm. Anybody can get in touch with me directly at Cory, CORY Friedman, FRIEDMAN at aleragroup.com. So first name dot last name. I invite anybody that has questions about insurance or benefits or trends or, wanting to do more for their employees to reach out, and I'm happy to have a conversation. I spend a great deal of time, trying to convince people not to do stuff, right? Sometimes not doing something is the right answer too. And so, like I said, I invite anybody that's, just curious or wanting to learn more about what's possible to reach out. Let's have a conversation. I think it's important for, members to be aware that, there is no one product or solution that we're married to. We truly are independent, of any insurance company or vendor partner, and, work on our clients' behalf to help them execute on their vision for their benefits program. And so, what that means is, somebody coming to us, looking for, for example, an association-based health insurance plan where we're pooling practices together and, achieving some sort of perceived, buying power and offering discounted health insurance is going to be disappointed because it doesn't exist. But somebody that's, looking for a partner that's going to really try to understand what they need and what they're looking for their own practice and can lean into a decade's worth of experience helping others solve many of those same challenges, I think is going to be, happy to find that, our team is here to provide that guidance. And, we'll go find the right carrier, the right solution, the right vendor, and leave a lot of room for flexibility. So we truly can tailor something to the unique needs of that business.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, Cory, and thanks for the work that you and Alera Group are doing with, especially with smaller businesses like the ones that we work with. So very much appreciated. And we'll close out here. If thanks for listening. If you'd like more information about iDoc and how we work with ODs to help grow their practice, you can find out more at iDoc. That's idoc.net. So this has been great. Thanks, Cory. And thanks to everyone for listening.
Yeah, thanks for having me.